So how it started, we have to learn, and why there is a need. The need is, you can explore the need. It is hidden in the population. The world population is continuously rising. So basically in the 20th century, the policy maker, the planners, the researchers were quite worried and thinking about food security, because the global population was rising. And to feed that population, when we look behind the scenario during the early 20th century, the production of the food grain was not sufficient. So to feed this huge population was a cumbersome task, because to feed that population, you need to grow the production and to improve the production. And not only to improve the production, but further you have to secure or to store some buffers also for the crisis situation, because as you know that sometimes we face the crisis like drought, famine, etc. So what was the task? What the policy maker were planned? To store some food for the crisis situation. So there are two challenges. First one is the continuous supply of the food for the population of the then period, and to store some food for the crisis situation. And when you look at during the early 20th century or of the mid of the 20th century, you can say that during that period of time, especially in the developing world and third world countries, okay, underdeveloped economy, have no money to invest in this field, in the field of agriculture. And this was again a very tough situation, you can say, because without investment you cannot improve any sector. Even in the developed economy, there was no you can say a technology which can brings a sea change in this sector. So now the researchers were trying to find out a new technology which can change the overall scenario of the agriculture sector. And during that period of time, a miracle takes place, because one scientist, one agronomist has developed a high yielding variety. And that person was the Norman Borlaug. He developed a high yielding variety of wheat. And the journey of Green Revolution begins with that discovery, that invention, that development of the high yielding variety. So that's why what I have said, that the Green Revolution was not takes place in India. It was a global event. And further it came to India, this revolution, and changed the agricultural scenario. Okay. But that changes was not homogeneous in every aspect, in every dimension. We have to understand it. So let's understand the historical background first. What I have mentioned here, that the food grain production in India, when you look at the Indian scenario, was very grievous, insufficient. And this was not the scenario in India, but in entire developing economy, in entire third world country, and even in certain developed states. So insufficient, grievous and insufficient the scenario was, okay, between 1947 to 1960. In the post-independence era, already I had discussed with you people, during that period of time the government was keen or concerned to improve the agriculture sector. And during that period of time, parallelly, the government was thinking for the land reform, and the government has came up with the laws. I had already discussed the land reforms in details. So one side, the government is trying to put the ceiling over the land, consolidation of the land, fixing the land tenure. So government come up with the land reforms. And why the land reforms? What was the major agenda? To just take the land from the big landlords and to provide that land to the landless. Why? To secure the agricultural production. On the other way, because the population was rising, and not of the India but also of the world. But I am चूंकि concerned हूँ मैं इंडियन ग्रीन रिवोल्यूशन में, तो भारत के बारे में भी अगर देखें, so population was rising, and that's why the government again was thinking. So what was the another problem was the growing population and the recurrent famines. Because of why the recurrent famines? Because the Indian agriculture was largely depend on the rainfall, largely depend on the monsoon, and there was a lack of infrastructure, especially the irrigation, the good variety of the seeds, okay, as well as there was a lack of chemical fertilizers. This was the scenario between 1947 to 1960 in India, and not only in India, but in the entire third world nation and developing world. This was the scenario. During the same period, what happened? Just look at, there was a severe shortage of food crops as well as the commercial crops like the cotton, okay, like the tobacco, the cash crop. So there was shortage, lack, and the farmers are very poor. Some farmers are landless, as you know, because the land was grabbed by the big big landlords, and it was due to the earlier land reform during the British period, basically the Jamindari system or Rayatwadi or Mahalwadi I had already discussed. And food availability, when you look at during that period of time, is 417 gram per day per person, per day per person. Per capita availability of the food grain during that period of time was what? 417 gram per person per day. Okay. And many farmers were in debt. कर्ज था उनके ऊपर, बिकॉज लैंडलेस थे, पैसा मनी लेंडर, लोकल मनी लेंडर से लेते थे. देयर वाज लैक ऑफ क्रेडिट फैसिलिटी, देयर वाज लैक ऑफ बैंकिंग पेनिट्रेशन, एंड इफ सो द गवर्नमेंट हैज टू, और बैंक आने से क्या होता है, उसमें आपके पास पैसा जेब में होना चाहिए टू ओपन द अकाउंट. ओके, so this was the challenge. The farmers were in debt, so they are not able to invest in the farmland, and they have no farmland even. They are dependent on the others' farmland for the agricultural activity. They had become landless laborers, and some people are reluctant to do agricultural practices. Okay, they are moving towards the city and become the industrial laborers. So the government was very worried about looking at this situation. Okay, and during the meantime, what happened in the 1944, an agronomist, Norman Borlaug, he joined the Rockefeller Foundation. He joined a foundation as a plant pathologist. He was an agronomist. He joined Rockefeller Foundation as a plant pathologist in the year 1944. Who? The Norman Borlaug. Okay. Here the Norman Borlaug along with the M.S. Swaminathan. These are the pioneer of the Green Revolution in the world and in India. They jointly works in India. In 1956, what the Borlaug achieved? He developed almost 40 new high-yielding variety, which is also rust resistant. Rust is a disease. It is a fungal disease. Rust is what? Rust is a fungal disease. So, the normal Borlaug in 1954, what he discovered, he developed the high-yielding varieties. And not one or two, but 40. Gradually, he developed one by one. He developed the dwarf wheat variety, which was the high-yielding variety. When? In the 1954. Okay, in Mexico. And when the Mexico started farming these high-yielding variety, then sudden agricultural scenario change in Mexico, and the Mexico becomes self-sufficient in the wheat production thanks to this high-yielding variety. So what happened? Mexico becomes self-sufficient in the wheat production due to the implementation of this high-yielding variety in the farmland. Looking at the Mexico success, it was eye-opening success. It was landmark success. Now the researcher is very keen to find out the new high-yielding varieties. Okay, so it gives impetus towards this field also. Okay, in the field of research. Later, the semi-dwarf wheat varieties developed in जापान in the 1800s. एक सेमी ड्वार्फ वेराइटी डेवलप हुआ था. This semi dwarf variety, which was developed in 1800 in Japan, was used to develop the high yielding varieties by the normal Borlaug. The two varieties of Japan were namely Akako Mugi. One variety of wheat was known as Akako Mugi, Akakomuzgi, and next is Daruma. With the help of these two varieties, the Japanese variety, they developed a new high-yielding variety of wheat. Okay, used in the international breeding program of the wheat. And Noreen 10 was developed by crossing Daruma and the Native American varieties. So how this variety developed? Noreen 10 by crossing the Daruma, the Japanese wheat variety, which was semi-dwarf. Dwarf मतलब बौना, नाटा. बड़े पौधे होते हैं, उनको इरिगेशन में ज़्यादा वाटर चाहिए, उनको ज़्यादा केमिकल चाहिए, वीड मैनेजमेंट ज़्यादा होता है, विंड स्पीड ज़्यादा होगी, बड़े पौधे गिर जाते हैं. तो साइंटिस्ट ने क्या डेवलप किया? ड्वार्फ प्लांट, बौने पौधे, छोटे पौधे. ठीक है ना, आपने सुना होगा, लोग कहते हैं नाटी मंसूरी. नाटी का मतलब, नाटा मतलब बौना, छोटा, ड्वार्फ. ठीक है, द पीपल प्रोड्यूस. ये ड्वार्फ वेराइटी, हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी कब आई? इसी दौरान. इसके पहले टॉल प्लांट थे. सो टॉल प्लांट हैविंग सर्टेन प्रॉब्लम्स. ओके, इसके कुछ एडवांटेज है. सो द रिसर्चर्स हैव डेवलप्ड द ड्वार्फ वेराइटी. One variety was developed, Noreen 10, by crossing the Japanese varieties with the American varieties. ये क्रॉस ब्रीड, इसीलिए नाम है हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी. ओके, बाय द ब्रीडिंग टेक्निक्स. ओके, क्रॉसिंग कहते हैं, बायोटेक्नोलॉजी में पढ़ोगे. ठीक है. In 1948, the US scientist crossed Noreen 10. अगेन जब ये व्हीट बनाया, इनसे दो से, डारूमा और नेटिव अमेरिकन वेराइटी से, Noreen 10. Then this Noreen 10 variety of wheat crossed with the braver variety, another American variety. अब देखो, एक तो पहले इसको बनाया खुद क्रॉस करके, डारूमा और अमेरिकन वेराइटी को क्रॉस करके बनाया था Noreen 10. फिर इस नोरीन ट्रेन को क्रॉस कराया किसके साथ? ब्रेवर वेराइटी के साथ. ब्रेवर इज ऑल्सो एन अमेरिकन नेटिव वेराइटी. इन दोनों को क्रॉस करके फिर से एक नया हाइब्रिड तैयार किया, ठीक है, नोरीन ब्रेवर क्रॉस. एंड this cross was taken by CIMMYT, the institute, the research institute. What was the name? CIMMYT, Mexico, in the 1954. This variety was taken by the Mexico in the 1954, and this variety, there are several HIVs of wheat were developed by Norman Borlaug. As I have said earlier, the 40 varieties of wheat the Norman Borlaug developed. Okay, and this CIMMYT, this institution of Mexico, introduced the high yielding variety in the maximum farmland, and what I have said, that landmark success they find out. They become self-sufficient in the wheat production. So this was the journey of the production of the high yielding variety outside India. Okay, it was grown in US as well as introduced in Mexico. And by looking at the success in Mexico, the Indians were keen to introduce this high yielding variety in India. So who was the pioneer? Who was the contributor of the Green Revolution at the global level? If someone is asking, it was Norman Borlaug. He was contributed to the Green Revolution significantly. Okay, and this set out its effect throughout the world, not only in India. So when we talk about Green Revolution, it was a global phenomena, it was a global revolution, not only in India, but in the syllabus there was a definite part that the Green Revolution of India, we have to elaborate the Green Revolution part in India. But you have to understand in the background that it was a global phenomena, it was a global revolution. Okay, so Borlaug provided the new seeds for the cultivation which were stocky, disease resistant. What is the benefit of the high yielding variety? It was, okay, stiff, पेस्ट रेसिस्टेंट, डिजीज रेसिस्टेंट, बिकॉज मैंने कहा रस्ट रेसिस्टेंट, फंगल रेसिस्टेंस वेराइटी डेवलप किया. इट वाज फास्ट ग्रोइंग, ओके, एंड हाईली रेस्पॉन्सिव टू फर्टिलाइजर्स ऑल्सो. सो दे आर स्मॉल, स्टॉकी, स्टंटेड, बट स्टिफ, resilient, as well as disease resistant, and optimally use the chemicals, fertilizer, because it's small in height. Okay, so this is the benefit of the high yielding variety. This is the feature which was developed by the Borlaug. And high yielding varieties of rice, then wheat के बाद rice grow हुआ, फिर maize grow हुआ, and research is going on continuously in other crops also. Now let's look at the journey of the rice. The high yielding variety of the rice suitable for cultivation in the tropical climate, India having the tropical climate. Okay, condition of the South Asia were developed by the IRRI. This is the institution, okay, based on genetic material drawn from China, Taiwan and Indonesia. बोला IRRI ने डेवलप किया जो हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी राइस की, वो जेनेटिक स्टॉक यानी राइस की वेराइटी कहाँ से मंगाई और उसको क्रॉस किया. बोला इंडोनेशिया से उसे मंगाया, चाइना से मंगाया, ठीक है, ताइवान से मंगाया, और उसके क्रॉस करके और उन्होंने हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी ऑफ राइस डेवलप की. All these countries lies in the tropical belt of the world, in the East Asia. So they had developed the high yielding variety, and the most famous high yielding variety of the rice which was developed was the IR8, which was introduced in the Green Revolution. उसका नाम क्या है? वेराइटी का IR8. So this was the variety of, this is the high yielding variety of rice which was introduced during the Green Revolution in India, IR8. Show one variety of rice, and not only one, where several variety of the rice, high yielding variety of the rice also developed. And where it was developed, IR8, which was introduced in India during the Green Revolution. It was developed based on experience in developing the Norin variety of Japan and Ponlai variety of Taiwan. ये पहले डेवलप हो चुका था, इसको देखकर क्रॉसिंग कराया गया राइस में भी. IR8 was short, stiff, straight, highly responsive to the fertilizers. This having the similar character like the high yielding variety of the wheat. They are small in size, optimally use the chemical fertilizer, stiff. Okay, and in India, the yield of the IR8 was 5 to 10 ton per hectare when it was introduced. पर हेक्टेयर 5 से 10 टन प्रोडक्शन हुआ ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन में जब ये इंट्रोड्यूस हुई वैरायटी भारत में. ओके, so it was developed in Philippines. फिलीपाइंस में डेवलप हुआ, इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ, और इट लेड टू द सक्सेस इन इंडिया. इन 19, सो अभी देखेंगे कि क्या सिनेरियो था 47 से 60 के बीच में. बोला मैंने फूड ग्रेन प्रोडक्शन भारत में कम था, लेकिन 64-65 ड्राउट ईयर में और खरीफ का जो सीजन था 66 में हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी इंडिया में इंट्रोड्यूस हुई, और वो हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी ने चेंजेस लाए. तो क्या हुई कि जब वर्ल्ड में व्हीट की हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी, राइस की हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी डेवलप हुआ, तो रिसर्चर्स ने ऑलमोस्ट पूरे वर्ल्ड में इसको फ्लश किया, हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी को. डेवलपिंग नेशंस को दिया, थर्ड वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज को दिया, भारत में भी सीड्स आई. तो मैंने क्या मेंशन किया है कि in the 1970, when you reach the 1970, the high yielding variety were given to the millions of the third world farmers. Not only in India these seeds came, but we will focus on India here. But we have to understand that time and again what I am saying, that if you started reading or understanding about the Green Revolution, it doesn't mean it always only happen in India. ठीक है, तो वहां से सीड निकलकर पूरे दुनिया में फैला, अलग अलग जगह इंट्रोड्यूस किया लोगों. Millions of farmers get benefit of this. Okay, and of course the thousands and thousands of farmers of India too get benefited by this research. In India, who is the pioneer? The geneticist, the plant geneticist, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. He was the pioneer. With coordination of Norman Borlaug, he initiated under the government guidelines. He learned the techniques. Okay, the government invited the Norman Borlaug. The government given the task to the Dr. M.S. Swaminathan to launch this revolution in India. And he passionately did the work and changed the agricultural scenario in India. So we can say that it was a joint effort of the researcher, policy makers, planners, as well as, of course, there was a great contribution of the Indian farmers, because in the farmland they did the practice. So it was a joint contribution. But who was the pioneer, who was the leading scientist of India? Was the Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. Okay, and it started around 1960 in the drought year. उस समय सूखा था 64-65 में जब ये लॉन्च किया गया. 66 के खरीफ सीजन में इसको लॉन्च किया गया. क्यों? क्योंकि 64-65 में ड्राउट रहा इंडिया में. 66 में सरकार के पास एक बड़ा प्रॉब्लम था, कैसे डेवलप करे. ठीक है, तो 66 खरीफ सीजन, द समर, they introduced, they launch what? The yielding variety in India. So let's understand what is green revolution, especially in India. So what I have discussed, the historical background. Now let's understand, when someone is asking you what is green revolution, how you can define it. Okay, here I have mentioned that this is the definition of green revolution. What is the definition? When you look at it, refers to series of research. When someone is asking you what is green revolution refers to a series of research. Okay, as a result of which the yielding variety development and technology transfer. So the new technology will develop, the series of research going on, and this technology which is developed transfer to the millions. So what is the green revolution? Green revolution refers to series of research, development and technology transfer initiatives occurring between 1940 and late 1970. When this series of research, development and technology transfer takes place globally from the 1940 to 1970. During that period of time, the research, development and technology transfer in the field of agriculture took place. That is known as green revolution, that increased the production around the world, including India, beginning most markedly in the late 1960. When it was markedly launched globally in the 1960 and increased the production. This is known as green revolution. So what happened in the green revolution? The new technology introduced. Further, I will elaborate. So this is the definition. Now, who coined the term green revolution? Either it was the Norman Borlaug or the Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. The answer is no. It was the director of USAID who coined this term. So the William God has coined this term. The William God was the director of United States Agency for International Development. In short, it is known as USAID. William God has coined the term green revolution. And he said that the new technology which changed the agriculture scenario is the green revolution. So the credit given to the William God to coin the term, this very famous global term, the green revolution. So it was not by the researcher Norman Borlaug or either by the Dr. Swaminathan. It was by the William God. And when he used this term in the year 1968, he was the director of USAID, United States Agencies for International Development. In short, is known as USAID. Okay. Now, so such kind of facts you should keep in mind for your screening paper. Now, what is the another important dimension? What I mentioned here, that green revolution's primary aim, what was the primary aim of green revolution? Was to increase the production. And how we can able to increase the production? By launching the high yielding variety seeds. So aim was to introduce the high yielding varieties, HYVs of the cereals to alleviate poverty. और क्यों बढ़ाना है production? Production to ensure the income of the farmer, production to ensure the food security, and the ultimate target was to alleviate poverty. गरीबी को हटाना, गरीबी उन्मूलन मेन था ऑब्जेक्टिव. ठीक है. So what I have said, that the primary aim was to introduce the high yielding varieties of the cereals to alleviate poverty and malnutrition in India. Per capita per day food availability was 417 gram to the person, and as you know it was the per head, but several people sleep empty stomach during that period of time. Okay, so this was the major agenda of the government, main aim, not to deny that the Green Revolution was capable of mitigating hunger and malnutrition in the short term as well. बहुत हद तक भारत से कुपोषण हटाने में, मालन्यूट्रिशन के लिए और हंगर के प्रॉब्लम को बहुत हद तक ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन ने सॉल्व किया, बट अभी भी पूरी तरह से इरेडिकेट नहीं. Okay, so I had summarized here. Now let's understand. This is the introduction of Green Revolution, what I have discussed. That you have to write what is Green Revolution. In brief, you have to just mention about the achievement of Borlaug and Swaminathan together, and we launch what is Green Revolution. You have to write in introduction, not वो historical background उतना नहीं लिखना है. Just in one paragraph you can mention, or in 1 or 2 sentences, about the achievement and how that global achievement has laid impetus in India for the bringing Green Revolution. What is Green Revolution? Then you have to define, and what was the aim of that. No need to write down here who coined the term. This is for your information only. All information नहीं लिखना होता है आपको, क्योंकि word limit को देखना होता है. ठीक है. If there is an essay on the agricultural production development scenario, then you may write different techniques or revolution which is in the field of primary sectors, agriculture and allied, which change the scenario. Now let's understand. A new agricultural strategy which was adopted in India during the third 5-year plan. When the government of India has adopted the new strategy of agriculture, if someone is asking you, in the third 5-year plan in the 1960. Okay. As suggested by the team of expert of the Ford Foundation. So you must understand here, the Ford Foundation of US had suggested in its report, इन्होंने एक रिपोर्ट पब्लिश किया था, उसने भारत सरकार को एक क्या दिया, विजन. क्योंकि इस रिपोर्ट, भारत सरकार ऑलरेडी हैविंग द विजन टू ग्रो, बट एक प्रेशर बिल्ट हुआ इस रिपोर्ट के बाद. क्या था रिपोर्ट? India's crisis of food and steps to meet in the 1959. The Ford Foundation has published a report in the year 1959, and the title of that report was the India's crisis of food and steps to meet in, where the Ford Foundation researchers has also suggested the steps to mitigate that problem. By looking at this report, the government has developed in the third 5-year plan a new strategies of agriculture production. And in that strategy, the government has planned to introduce the high yielding variety in India to bring green revolution in India. Okay. So the government decided to shift the strategies followed in agriculture sector of the country. And accordingly, in the 1960, what the government did? The government came up with a plan or a scheme. इस रिपोर्ट के बाद गवर्नमेंट एक स्कीम के साथ आई. From the 7 states, 7 districts were selected. They choose the 7 states, and from all the states they choose the 7 districts. And the government introduced a pilot project. When we initiate a project on a limited scale, we call it pilot project. So pilot project as intensive area development program. What was the program of, what was the name of that program? IADP. वो प्रोग्राम का नाम क्या था जो गवर्नमेंट ने लॉन्च किया? आईएडीपी, 7 राज्यों के 7 डिस्ट्रिक्ट में लॉन्च किया आईएडीपी, अ पायलट प्रोजेक्ट। ओके, नाम था, फुल फॉर्म क्या है? इंटेंसिव एरिया डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम। क्या करना है? इंटेंसिव एग्रीकल्चर। Intensive area development program was launched by the government into those 7 districts for introducing intensive effort for raising agricultural production. Intensive farming इसका ऑब्जेक्टिव, प्रोडक्शन बढ़ाना। प्रोग्राम का नाम है पायलट बेसिस पर आईएडीपी। ओके, हाउ इट पॉसिबल, कैसे होगा ये? आईएडीपी में किस पे थ्रस्ट दिया गया? इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ मॉडर्न इनपुट्स लाइक फर्टिलाइजर। द गवर्नमेंट इज ऑल्सो प्रोवाइडिंग क्रेडिट एंड मार्केटिंग फैसिलिटीज टू द फार्मर्स। गवर्नमेंट क्या क्या देने को तैयार हुई फार्मर को? बोला फर्टिलाइजर भी प्रोवाइड करेंगे, फाइनेंस भी प्रोवाइड करेंगे, मार्केटिंग भी एश्योर करेंगे। पायलट बेसिस पे ये 7 राज्यों में शुरू हुआ, 7 जिले में शुरू हुआ। Later on, this project was extended to remaining states of India, and 1 district from each state was selected for intensive development under IADP program. So from here the history begins, from the IADP program. अब यहाँ पे agriculture concerns दिखाई दे रहे। Government was under pressure. The Ford Foundation researchers are also giving the ideas how you can improve and cater the challenges of food crisis. Getting my point? Yes or no? And government came up with this program. So पहले आपने देखा रिकफेलर फाउंडेशन का नाम सुना, जहां नॉर्मन बोरलो ने काम किया। फिर अभी आपने फोर्ड फाउंडेशन का भी कंट्रीब्यूशन सुना। तो जब when you are writing some essay on something, you may mention that, आपको मेंशन करना चाहिए। ओके, नाउ लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड। इन द 1965, 144 districts were selected for intensive cultivation and the program was renamed। फिर नाम चेंज हुआ प्रोग्राम का, जो आईएडीपी था अब ये बन गया इंटेंसिव एग्रीकल्चर एरिया प्रोग्राम, आईएएपी हो गया। So the intensive area development program IADP now become the IAAP when it became in the year 1965. Now the program was launched in 144 districts of India. Okay, now and the history change in the year 1966. In the Kharif season in the 1966, India adopted the high yielding varieties program for the first time. So if someone is asking you when in India the Green Revolution launched, the Green Revolution launched the year 1966 Kharif season. The high yielding variety launched in India. Okay. तो जर्नी सोचो, 47 से स्टार्ट है वर्क। लॉन्च कब हुआ हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी? 66 खरीफ सीजन में। इसके पहले हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी पे रिसर्च करके पहले उसे ग्लोबली डेवलप किया गया, नॉर्मन बोरलो ने डेवलप किया 54 में। उसके बाद ही टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर होगी, आएगी। ठीक है, अब देखो, दिस introduction of high yielding variety, this is high yielding variety program, we called it Green Revolution, where we launched this high yielding variety program was a package program। केवल इसी को ले आकर इंट्रोड्यूस करने से एग्रीकल्चर प्रोडक्शन नहीं होगा। हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी की कुछ रिक्वायरमेंट है, सो ग्रीन रिवोल्यूशन के कुछ कंपोनेंट हैं। ये एक पैकेज प्रोग्राम था, यानी इसमें एक साथ कई चीजें इंट्रोड्यूस की गई। क्या क्या इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया? तो हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी की नीड्स है केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर, तो उसे भी यहां लाना था। हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी की नीड्स है एक्सेसिव इरिगेशन, तो वाटर सप्लाई इंश्योर करनी थी। हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटीज के लिए टेक्नोलॉजी चाहिए, तो कुछ मैकेनाइजेशन भी किया गया, मशीन्स लाई गई, टेक्नोलॉजी लाए गए। हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटीज जब तुम ग्रो करोगे और एक्सेसिवली फार्म को इरिगेट करोगे तो एक समस्या और आती है, जब आप एक्सेसिव इरिगेशन करते हैं वीड्स डेवलप हो जाते हैं। और ऑब्वियसली हम बात कर रहे हैं 1966 की, तो ऑब्वियसली स्प्रिंकलिंग इरिगेशन और ड्रिप इरिगेशन तो नहीं होगा ना, सरफेस इरिगेशन होगा लार्जली। सरफेस इरिगेशन यानी फरोज, बेसिन, चेक, ओके, फ्लड, ये जो कल मैंने डिस्कस किया था, द टाइम द मेथड ऑफ इरिगेशन, इट वाज प्रैक्टिस ना। और उसका प्रॉब्लम क्या होता है, वीड्स कैन ग्रो, सो व्हाट यू शुड इंट्रोड्यूस, वीडीसाइड। In the tropical region, when there is a intensive moisture that lead to born of insects, insect जन्म लेने लगते हैं, तो आपको insecticide भी चाहिए। So why I have written here that HIV program was a package program, because you cannot isolately introduce HIV and you find the landmark changes in the field of agricultural production. You have to introduce other things jointly. Okay, so the government has introduced this package program which is known as high yielding variety program. So what I have mentioned, that from here 1966, when the government has launched the HIV program, the HYV program, high yielding variety program, it was a package program. Okay, very okay. तो इसमें क्या चाहिए आपको, एडिक्वेट इरिगेशन फैसिलिटी, एप्लीकेशन ऑफ फर्टिलाइजर, हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटी ऑफ सीड्स, पेस्टिसाइड्स, इंसेक्टिसाइड एक्सेट्रा, एंड दिस न्यू स्ट्रैटेजी इज आल्सो नोन एज मॉडर्न एग्रीकल्चरल टेक्नोलॉजी और द ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन। So what is the green revolution? Green revolution in single term is a package program. What package program? The high yielding variety package program, because the high yielding variety having certain other needs. So what are the component of green revolution? Not only the high yielding variety, but also the fertilizer, chemical fertilizer, other component irrigation, pesticide, insecticide, farm mechanization, technology, credit, etc., etc. Am I clear to all of you? समझ आ रहा है? आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you look at India receives 100 kg seeds, each of 4 dwarf and semi-dwarf varieties. 4 ड्वार्फ और सेमी ड्वार्फ वेराइटी की कितनी सीड्स भारत को मिली? 100 kg सीड्स। और इस 100 kg सीड्स को भारत में इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया। इसका रिजल्ट क्या था? इसका रिजल्ट था yield was over 4000 kg and it was introduced in the soil in Delhi, Ludhiana, Pusha in Samastipur, Bihar, and Kanpur in Uttar Pradesh. So where it was introduced, this 100 kg seeds of the 4 dwarf and semi-dwarf variety, okay, और खरीफ में क्या खेती होती है? राइस की खेती होती है, नॉट ऑफ वीट। तो ऑब्वियसली हमने वीट इंट्रोड्यूस नहीं किया, हमने क्या इंट्रोड्यूस किया? राइस की वेराइटी, ड्वार्फ वेराइटी इन दैट खरीफ सीजन 100 kg। और हमने क्या देखा, कहां इंट्रोड्यूस किया? बोला दिल्ली, लुधियाना, पूषा इन समस्तीपुर, बिहार, एंड कानपुर, उत्तर प्रदेश। एंड व्हाट वी फाइंड द रिजल्ट? 4000 kg पर हेक्टेयर प्रोडक्शन। And the farmer surprised, okay, which was 4 times the yield of the local variety. इसके पहले जो लोकल वेराइटीज हम लगा रहे थे उससे 4 गुना ज्यादा प्रोडक्शन। और ये रिजल्ट जो है उसने इंथुजियाज्म पैदा किया और उसके बाद हमने हाइल्डिंग वेराइटी को इंट्रोड्यूस किया इंडिया में, ठीक है। These varieties were released for general cultivation later on after experimentation, multiplication and demonstration by the Indian scientists in about 100 different farms fields. 100 अलग अलग फार्मर्स को सीड्स देकर पहले जब इसको मल्टीप्लाई और डेमोन्स्ट्रेट किया गया, उसके बाद क्या किया गया, जनरल कल्टीवेशन के लिए इसको फार्मर्स को दिए गए। और यहां से भारत की जर्नी जो है ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन की स्टार्ट होती है। इन द इनिशियल स्टेज, शुरुआती दौर में क्या हुआ, द हाइल्डिंग वेराइटी प्रोग्राम अलोंग विथ द IAAP प्रोग्राम, मैंने बताया था IADP बिकम द IAAP, so along with this program was implemented in 18.9 million hectare area of India। कितने एरिया में ये प्रोग्राम लॉन्च हुआ, बोला 18.9 मिलियन हेक्टेयर एरिया में, which was gradually enlarged to 75 million hectare in the 1995-96। तो देखो एरिया कैसे स्प्रेड होने लगा ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन। ओके, तो कहाँ 18.9 मिलियन हेक्टेयर एरिया में ये इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ था 1966 में, 66-67 में, वो जो है आते आते 95-96 कितना हो गया, 75 मिलियन हेक्टेयर। ओके, विच अकाउंटेड नियरली 43% ऑफ द टोटल नेट शोन एरिया ऑफ द कंट्री। तो हाइल्डिंग वेराइटी ने लगभग 43% नेट शोन एरिया को ग्रैब कर लिया भारत के। क्यों ऐसा हुआ, मैंने कहा रिजल्ट्स बहुत अच्छे थे, प्रोडक्शन अच्छा हो रहा था। ओके, एडवांटेज क्या है हाइल्डिंग वेराइटी का, शॉर्टर ड्यूरेशन पीरियड है राइपनिंग का, कम समय में फसल तैयार हो जाती है। सो व्हाट इज द हाइल्डिंग वेराइटी एडवांटेज, दैट सीड्स रिक्वायर शॉर्टर ड्यूरेशन ऑफ ग्रोथ। एंड व्हाट इज द benefit of that, now the farmers is ready for the multiple cropping in the farmland, okay, 2 or even 3 crops throughout the year. So this changed the farmer condition. When the farmer adopted this yielding variety, earlier the farmers are not able to practice the multiple cropping in all across India. क्या करना होता था फार्मर्स को, खेती करने के बाद लैंड को परती छोड़ देना होता था, फैलो छोड़ देते थे, एक सीजन खेती नहीं करते थे और फिर प्लांटेशन करते थे। अभी जब हाइल्डिंग वेराइटीज इंट्रोड्यूस हो गई, इरिगेशन फैसिलिटी आ गए, केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर्स भी मिल गए इंट्रोड्यूस करने के लिए, उसकी भी धीरे धीरे अवेलेबिलिटी बढ़ाने लगी। एक दिन में तो ऑब्वियसली नहीं होगा सारी चीजें। अभी अब जब ग्रोइंग पीरियड भी क्रॉप की जल्दी है, फसल जल्द पक के तैयार हो रहा है, तो उससे बेनिफिट्स क्या हो रहे हैं, व्हाट इज द एडवांटेज ऑफ द फार्मर्स, दैट दे आर रेडी टू इम्प्लांट द अनदर क्रॉप, दे आर प्रैक्टिसिंग मल्टीपल क्रॉपिंग, सो दे स्टार्टेड that increase the production as well as the income of the farmer in the area where the green revolution introduced and launched. And especially who took the benefit of this, obviously the big landlord, the big farmers, because they have the money in their pocket to purchase the yielding variety from the market and to introduce in the field. Okay,